rate of interest. We also pointed out that there will be a crowding out effect because the increase in government spending is accompanied by a reduction in private investment. Private investment goes down because rate of interest has gone up. So this substitution of government spending for private investment is called crowding out effect. So there are three things important about this comparative static change. One is the change in the variables of interest. Both rate of interest and income will go up. Both rate of interest and income will go up. Y goes up, but the increase is less than in the simple Keynesian model. The reason is there's a second round effect via the money market. Rate of interest goes up and private investment declines. And the third effect is important point is related to the second point, that government spending reduces or substitutes for private investment, the so-called crowding out effect. Now, I had shown the two special cases, the classical portion when the crowding out effect is perfect, your full crowding out effect. So the increase in government spending is completely negated by a decrease in private investment. Therefore, there's no change in income. There's only a change in rate of interest. So in the classical section, fiscal policy will be completely ineffective. On the other hand, if you go to the liquidity trap, the so-called Keynesian section, then we will find that uh, fiscal policy is at its most effective situation. In this case, the multiplier is equal to the multiplier in the simple Keynesian model. The reason is that there's no second round effect via the money market. Rate of interest doesn't change, and so there's no crowding out effect. So is there any questions about the impact of government spending? Okay. So now let us look into the impact of a change in tax. For simplicity, we assume that we have lump sum taxes. Okay. So the first question is, which market is affected? The commodity market or the money market?
The commodity market.
So the commodity market is affected, and in the four quadrant diagram, therefore, the first quadrant is of course the IS and LM curve, but the other three curves, the other three quadrants will show the IS curve. Okay, so that means in the three quadrants, 2 to 4, we need to put in the bring in the IS market. Okay. The next question is that, okay, how will the IS curve shift? Okay. So let's draw the diagram. So This is the IS curve. This is the LM curve. আমি জি টা আঁকছি না, I'm straight away drawing the IR plus G. This is the 45-degree line, and this is the S plus T. Okay, so now let's start. So this is Y. তো IS curve চেঞ্জ করবে, তাই IS1 করে দিলাম। This indicates, sorry, it's plus, and this is obviously savings is a function of disposable income. আর এটা কি হচ্ছে? This is ING. Okay. আচ্ছা, so let's draw the point from here. Oh. I just take it up and I bring this over here. In fact, LM curved out, delete করে দিই. It will be. Let me pass the LM curve through this point. It will be less complicated. And the point, so that this is the IS curve and this is the LM curve. Okay. So this is the first equilibrium. Now let us suppose the tax rate has gone up. So which of these functions will change? Obviously not IR. This is just a equilibrium condition. So S plus T will change. And what is the change in S plus T? How will it change?
It will rotate outwards.
Yeah, actually this is confusing because what is upwards? Let's say it rotates downwards. Downwards as we see it. But basically what it means is that for the same level of income, you are collecting more taxes. So let me just put it as so. I'm putting this in brackets, sorry, inverted comma, because it looks downwards, but actually it means that there's an upward rotation if you had drawn it on the first quadrant. Okay, so now we just have to extend this. So R is the same. We just have to come from here. Okay, so that means the IS2 curve will be this one. So this was R1, this will be Y2, Y1 as equilibrium term, this will be R2. Okay, so this is E2 as opposed to E1. So the third question is, how will this affect Y and R? Sorry, just give me a second, please. Hello.
Sir, you are on mute, I think.
Okay, so I'll repeat this. Uh, so the third question is, how will this affect Y and R? And remember one thing, that generally our focus is on income. Occasionally, we want to control rate of interest also. But in most cases, the objective of intervention is either to stimulate income, or income is growing uncontrollably fast and there's overheating, and we want to control or reduce the growth rate. So generally, our focus is on Y. And here we see that an increase in lump sum taxes is reducing income. It is also reducing rate of interest. Fourth is, what is the mechanism underlying this change? Okay, so initially what happens is that when lump sum taxes is raised, your demand, aggregate demand, contracts, and there will be, yeah. So what will there be?
Excess supply.
There will be excess supply. So if you have excess supply, the money market investment savings this adjusts itself, excess supply, and this leads to a reduction in output. Now, if you look at this, the reduction in output, E1, the reduction is output is over here, what we can call E prime 2. I'll label this later. Okay, so this is the so-called first round effect. Only the commodity market. Now, if I go to E prime 2, let's label this now to avoid further. So if I go to E prime 2, the second, we see that the money market is now in this equilibrium. Okay. What will now happen is the rate of interest, because income has gone down, Y has gone down, your transactions demand will also go down, and so there's a overall decline in demand for money. So that means you also have a excess supply in the money market. Okay, if the money supply is constant, you can only regain equilibrium by increasing money demand. That is the speculative component. So you have to increase the rate of interest, increase in, sorry, there will be a decrease in R. If there's excess supply in the money market, then this will lead to investment in bonds. Bond prices will go up, rate of interest will come down. Let's put everything in. So investment in bond market, price of bond will rise, and decrease in rate of interest. Okay, so the money market goes back to equilibrium. Then what happens is, if we come back to we have the second round effect on the commodity market. As R has fallen, I investment will rise, and this will partially offset the reduction in Y due to the tax. So again, what it means is, instead of E prime 2, so there's a rise in income from E prime 2 to E2. Okay. So this implies that the multiplier, or rather the absolute value of the multiplier, will be less than in the simple Keynesian model. Okay, is it clear? So now we have to find out what is the multiplier, and which is question 5, and question 6 and 7 is what will happen in the classical case and in the Keynesian case. Okay, so if there are no questions, I'll go to the next part. Okay, so let's go for the maths. Okay. So the IS market is this, and this is the commodity market, sorry, money market. Just, okay. So if we take the total differential, this will be S prime dy minus S prime dt plus dt. This is I prime dr, and dg is 0. This is k into dy plus L prime into dr, and this is 0. So if we do some housekeeping over here, the equation will become S prime dy minus I prime dr. This will be k into dy plus L prime into dr. Okay, and over here, this will be 1 minus s. If I take it on this side, it will be 1 minus s prime dt. Okay, so I can bring the dt over here. This is dt. So let me wrap out this portion. by Kramer's rule, so what will be the term? Numerator? What is the numerator, please?
Minus 1 minus S prime.
Yes.
And below that 0.
Yeah. Over here.
Over there we have
Minus
the
I dash and
minus
by L
Minus
dash.
I prime and L prime.
Plus L.
by L dash, yes.
Yeah. So that
Sir,
if you
it will
just
be minus of 1 minus S dash.
Yes, sir. Minus of 1 minus S.
wait, কোনটা এই জায়গাটা? Let's see. This is 1 minus S prime. I'm taking this over here. Oh, acha. This is I've written plus over here. Yeah. Okay. Just one sec. Yeah. Okay. So this will be S prime minus I prime L prime, and this is K. So this is S prime L prime. This will be plus I prime K, and I bring the minus over here. So it is L prime 1 minus S prime. Okay. So if I take this 1 minus S prime, this is S prime plus I prime into L prime K. Both of them are negative. So this term will be positive. So the denominator is positive. And if S prime is less than 1, the numerator is also positive. So it is negative. Okay, so you have to explain the signs. Okay, and if I take dr by dt, uh, dr dt,
Sir, S prime K
yeah,
minus
how
1
do
minus
I
S
write?
Minus 1 minus S prime and 0. Yes.
Yeah, okay, so this will be 0. This minus will cancel out. We have k 1 minus s prime. Okay, so the numerator is positive, but both L prime and I prime are negative. So this means this term is also negative. This is also negative. So we have this. So we can see using Kramer's rule that both dy and dr by dt will be negative. And finally, we come to the classical and Keynesian case. So let's do the maths part first. So if we take, use a different pen. Okay, let's use this part. Okay, no. First, let me copy this, then I'll. Okay, so let's go to the Keynesian case, the liquidity trap. L prime is 0. So if L prime is 0, mm, if L prime is 0, it's better if you use this form. In the
স্যার
Keynesian
কেনিশিয়ান
case,
কেসে এল প্রাইমটা ইনফিনিটি হয় না?
sorry,
Yes, so
Keynesian
because fiscal
Keynesian case
policy will be
this.
affected.
Yeah. So it will be okay. So if it is infinite, এইখানটা তাহলে 0 হয়ে যাচ্ছে। Okay, so dy dt is equal to 1 minus s prime. This is s prime. dr dt তে again this part will be 0. So dr dt is equal to 0. Classical case dy dt. Okay, in the classical case, if I take this form, this will be 0. So I have 0 by the denominator, which is 0. এখানে only this one, dr dt will change. So if I put 0 over here, the expression becomes, let's say I prime k, which is negative. So what I can see is that if I compare with this case, we were increasing in absolute terms, we were increasing the numerator, denominator. So the denominator has now gone down. So that means this r in the classical case will be greater, the change in r in absolute terms will be greater than in the normal case. Similarly, over here, also you can see that ki, this term was increasing the denominator. So in this case also, this is greater than dy dt in the normal case. Okay, so the impact on income, the multiplier, income multiplier, tax multiplier is most effective. The impact of tax is most effective in the Keynesian case, intermediate in the normal case, completely ineffective in the classical case. And we have the reverse ordering for rate of interest. It is most effective in the classical case. Second is this, and completely ineffective in the Keynesian case. So now we come back to the diagrammatic expositions. Not very good, but I'll keep this. The wire yellow. Sorry, this was the bone of contention. Let me pull this over here. Okay. Here. Okay. Now the second curve. So you can see it's very clear. I'm not completing the diagrams. You can see that in the classical case, the earlier result holds. Fiscal policy is completely ineffective in stimulating rate of interest or in, sorry, stimulating or contracting output. Its only impact is on the money market on R. On the other hand, in the Keynesian case, becomes is the best policy that we should introduce, and R is constant over here. Well, not constant, but it doesn't change. So this was question 6, you can see. Okay. And now we come to the case of our old friend, the balanced budget multiplier. Okay. So let's derive the balanced budget multiplier in this case. So what is the condition? Sorry, it should be S prime. Okay. So let's work out the commodity market first. Okay. So who'll help me? So there's a simultaneous increase in G, government spending, and this is financed by an equal amount of change in the lump sum taxes. So who will help me make this derivation?
Sir, S prime dy.
S prime dy
minus S prime dt
S prime dt
plus dt
plus dt
minus I prime
I prime
dr
dr.
dr.
equal to dg.
Okay. So now let's put in,
Yes, we common out.
yeah, let's put in dg everywhere. And you can see that there's a dg on both sides. So this and this is going to cancel out. So we have s prime dy
dy
minus I prime.
I prime dr equal to
Let's put a dg over here. And this is equal
S
to
prime
plus
minus,
s prime.
yeah, plus S prime.
Yeah. And the money market,
Sir, ky my plus lr.
let's put it
Yes,
ly
sir. So
here.
yes, a k dy. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Plus L prime
dr dg
dr.
is equal to 0.
Yes.
Okay. So we are most interested in dy dg. And this is, let's write a denominator first. So s prime k minus I prime L prime. Okay, so it's the first term. So this term is going to remain the same, I prime L prime. And this is S prime 0. So we have L prime, S prime, lots of S prime, L prime. This is Ki. So, sorry, let's put it over here. So it is 1 by 1 plus k into I. Sorry, this should be I prime. Okay, so we have, well, first is it positive or negative? So I prime is negative, L prime is also negative. The two negatives cancel out, S prime is positive. So this is positive. So everything is positive and this will be greater than 0. Okay. Second is, what is the multiplier compared to the Keynesian case? In the Keynesian case, it was 1. But if this is positive, you are having a case like this, 1 plus theta. And you are comparing this with 1. Okay. So obviously, this is going to be lower, right? The denominator is more. So we can see that the BPM in the ISLM model is less than 1, which is the BBM in the simple Keynesian model. Okay. Now, let us look into the two cases. Let us consider the liquidity trap. In the liquidity trap, L prime is equal to, sorry, infinity কি করে লিখবো এবার? Yeah. So this is infinity. So uh, this is equal to 1 plus 0. It is equal to 1. So this is equal to the simple Keynesian multiplier. And it's easy to check that if you put in 0 over here, 0 over here, you're going to get 0 plus ky. So in the classical case, the BBM, we know that y doesn't change. And in the BBM also, it will be 0. Any questions? So I'm deleting this. Okay. So just remember one thing that we have discussed increases in all the cases. There was an increase in money supply, increase in government spending, increase in the tax rate. So we can also, obviously, we can also have decreases or cuts in all three of them. And in each of the cases, the effect is going to be the opposite. So for instance, in the fiscal case, when government spending is reduced, we have a crowding in effect. The reduction in government spending creates a space where which allows the private investment to go up, to increase. So we can say that private investors are crowding out government investment. Okay, and in each of the case, you just do everything, but remember, it's everything is in reverse, except for the maths part, Cramer's rule. You're always going to get them the same values. So whether it's a cut or whatever, you're always going to get. You're always going to get these negative, both of them negative. Okay. So any questions at this point? Okay. So let me ask you a question. Let's put this over here. Uh, this is the tax case. So I just need this portion. This is tax. And where is investment? I hope this is, yeah, this is investment. So far, what we have been discussing is a piecemeal policy. Okay, so we are either changing, we are changing only one parameter. So there are three ways by which we can change the stimulate income. So this is increase in G. This is sorry, it's an increase in tax, and this is an increase in money supply. Okay, so that means if you want to expand income, we have to do the opposite. Okay, we have to reduce lump sum taxes. Okay, now tell me one thing. What is in each of the cases? Suppose let's write it down first of all. So suppose you have an expansionary policy, and the first policy is through G. What is happening? In each case, Y is going to go up. Okay, but what I'm interested in, what will happen to R? Here, R will also rise. Okay, let's say T. What is happening over here? T is falling, but if we expand income, in that case, R will fall. Okay, and let's keep the money supply separately. In case of the money supply, what is happening is R will fall. Okay, so now tell me, which policy should we choose? Or do you think that it is a
Sir, both.
trivial choice? Do you think it's a trivial choice? It doesn't matter which policy we choose. Why saying that both? So you feel that a choice is trivial.
Sir, I was thinking of policy means together, both together.
Okay, we'll see what will happen. Or what about all three policies together? That will be even more fun. No, let us say that which policy should we choose? Uh, First, let us make the choice between fiscal and monetary policy. Well, one point is right. This is the most important question. Suppose we are under classical portion, then which policy should we choose?
Monetary policy.
And if you're on the Keynesian portion, we have to go for
Fiscal
the
policy.
fiscal policy.
Fiscal.
Yeah. So one is if we are either on the classical or Keynesian section, the choice is clear. There's only one policy which is effective. Sorry. There's only one policy which will be effective depending on where we are, and you have to go for that policy. Okay. But suppose we are on the normal portion, the portion that we have shown over here. In this case also, are we going to, I mean, which policy should we choose? Or do you think it's irrelevant? We can just toss a coin and go for either fiscal policy or monetary policy.
Sir, it depends
So
upon the
will it depend on the
situation.
slope of the curves, like the relative slopes?
No, no, no.
Sir, if we want investment to rise, sir, we
I
should
mean,
go
yeah,
for monetary
just
policy.
one second, please. I'll come to you on. Yeah, I mean, the slope is relevant because whether it's vertical or not, but suppose it's roughly 45, everything is normal. So in that case, it will not make too much of a difference. Yeah,
Yes.
on, come to what were you saying? Sorry for interrupting you.
No, no, so
Sir,
I
I
was not
was telling
adding anything.
No,
if
no,
in
I
if
was
we
on. Yeah,
sir
on.
if we want investment to rise, we should go for monetary policy because investment in the long run is useful. That is why.
Uh, you're coming close. I would say it's uh, not cool, but warm. But you have to go to boiling hot. You played hot and cold. On, have you played hot and cold before?
No, sir.
Do you know the game?
No, sir.
Who knows the game? None of you have played hot and cold.
No, sir.
Yes, so I have.
Okay, then
It's
you do the
basically
honors.
when you're near the, like, someone hides something, and if you're near the, like, and you the person playing the game has to find it, and if you're near the object, the person who has hidden it says you're hotter or you're colder, and then you kind of find the object
Yeah.
depending on
So
that.
the closer you move, it's you become hotter, and the further
Yes.
away you move, you become colder. So
Yes, sir.
you're warm. Iron was warm.
Sir, composition of Y is altered in both the cases. If government expansion is done, consumption rises and means it crowds out investment. And in the other case, investment rises, but the rest are unaffected.
What other parameter is there? Sorry, what is the other variable over here? Y is rising in all the cases, right? But is there any difference in the impact of fiscal and monetary policy? Not the composition, something very broad.
Sir, is the increase in Y same in all three cases?
Sorry, I just made a mistake over here. R is falling over here, so that means if I want to expand income, I'll have to reduce lump sum taxes, right? So in that case, R will rise. Yeah, Upanita, what were you saying?
Yes, sir, is the increase in Y same for all three cases?
Let's assume they are. You're
So
tweaking
in
it in such a way that it's same.
the monetary case, you don't have the crowding out effect.
No,
Maybe.
just look at this part. What is the difference between monetary and fiscal policy?
So in fiscal policy, T acts as a
Yeah.
stabilizer, kind of.
Now, see
And
what
like,
is happening in this case?
Sir, in
In
fiscal
fiscal
policy,
policy,
R is
rate of
rising.
interest is rising.
R is
Yes.
rising. Yes, sir.
And in money supply, R is
R is
falling.
falling.
So one choice is, what do you want with R? Do you want that to increase or do you want it to fall? So do you think,
So then it becomes a savings versus investment case.
in what sense?
So like if R is falling, then in
Hmm.
such a case, investors will invest more, and
Why?
so because then they have to
Investors will invest more, that's right. But what about savings? It depends on
yes, sir,
income.
savings will reduce because since they are not getting sufficient returns for the amount they are saving.
Savings depends upon income
Oh,
in the
sorry,
Keynesian case.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, do you think that R is low or it is high? If you think it is low, then we should go for a fiscal policy that will increase R. And if we think that it is high, we will go for a monetary policy that will reduce R. Okay. And now the third question, that what do we, what is the choice between fiscal and okay, suppose for some reason we are going for fiscal policy. In that case, what is the, how do we choose between tax and G? Can we make a choice? So this is the third part. So for some reason, we have decided that we are going for a fiscal policy. See, I mean, over here, you have, mm, see, in both cases, what will happen to the budget surplus? Whether you increase G or decrease T, your budget is going to go up. Your deficit is going to go up. So budgetary deficit will not be that important. In both cases, rate of interest is rising. So you're going to have a crowding out effect. Uh, I mean, over here, let's see. I mean, what we can, I mean, partly one is that, see, if you reduce, let us say that if you cut tax rates, this should stimulate supply of labor, right? That is the thing. So what is happening is that you're going to have a supply side effect. And plus you're going to have a demand side effect. In what sense? That you have more disposable income, and so disposable income rises, so you have a demand side effect. On the other hand, if government spending goes up, you just have the demand side effect. Okay, just aggregate demand is going up. Uh, so now actually you can't uh, see directly, I mean, but just by looking at the diagram, uh, which is better? I mean, see, if you have a situation when it is like this, the equilibrium is over here, or the equilibrium is over here, you can say that rate of interest is very high, very low, and you can choose between monetary and fiscal policy. These things are not very easily apparent from the IS curve. So, I mean, what is going to happen is if you feel that the tax rates are very high, in that case, uh, cutting tax rates is going to give the Laplace curve effect. Your revenue will also go up and it's going to stimulate labor supply even more. But if you feel the tax rates are quite low and they are not really holding back the economy, then government spending is better. I mean, if you have very low tax rates, so this is basically a question of elasticity, which is not very apparent from the diagrams. So it will be more sort of value judgment. And of course, the policymakers
Excuse me,
have
sir.
the, yeah.
Sir, but most governments during recession have chosen to decrease taxes first. Sir, is it something to do with the time factor? Means the disposable income falls, is affected first, and so the consumption goes up, or is it just some other policy consideration?
So in recession, uh, why are you saying that they're cutting taxes? We can also have increase in G. In fact, Keynes advocated an increase in G. In
So
fact,
maybe like cutting taxes has a more direct and immediate effect, and a more quicker effect, because increasing government spending has a lot of like bureaucratical and like infrastructural problems to kind of get the final effect of increase in Y.
yeah, what you're saying is true, but let us assume that the economy doesn't have any friction. So what you're talking about is are frictions in the economy which are reducing the impact of a particular policy. It's a good point, but let's not bring these into the picture. We assume that once the government takes a decision, it's uh, enforced immediately. So, I mean, right away, it depends upon where exactly. I mean, your tax elasticity, government spending, points which are not very easily uh, observable from the IS curve. So, if you feel that the tax rates are too high, then it is better to go for tax rates. It is going to have a demand side effect and supply side effect. The supply side effect will be quite strong. And in fact, you might have a situation via the Laplace curve when the revenue also, the budgetary deficit, will not be affected too much. It might even increase. So if you have very high tax rates, a reduction in tax will not only have the desired impact on Y and R, but the budgetary deficit will also be controlled. Because remember, the Laplace curve said that if you cut taxes, your revenue will go up. But on the other hand, if you start with low taxes, I mean, the scope for cutting taxes further is limited. It's going to increase your budget deficit, but at least that's accepted. But it's unlikely that the supply side effect is going to be very strong, or even the demand side effect is going to be very strong. So you can see that what you have to do in that case is to find out these things. I'll just show it. So what you have to do is uh, sorry, this will be T. Mhm. God. I'm sorry. Sorry. Mm. You can directly go for them, and depending upon the exact value of elasticity, let's see. This is the which is the this is money supply. But didn't I work out the G case?
Sir, that was
So you
homework.
asked us.
Oh, that was the homework. Okay. That's what I'm thinking. There's something I gave you, and you're very quiet about that. Oh, so in that case, let's work that out first. So, what is the G impact of a change in G? Yes? Have you worked it out? Tried it out? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
হ্যাঁ
Yes,
So
বলো
sir.
both are positive.
হ্যাঁ সেটা তো ঠিক আছে the maths part.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so help me out please. কি হবে এটা?
So S prime
Prime dy dg
dy dg minus I prime dr dg is equal to 1.
Okay, and this one, LM curve.
K dy
K
dg
k dy dg
plus L dash dr dg equal to 0.
equal to 0.
So dy dg is equal to কি হবে এটা? First
1
column.
0, and then in the next column minus I prime and L prime.
Yeah. So this is
So it will be L prime over the usual denominator.
L prime. So it is 1 by S prime. So this is 1. And in the classical case, L prime is 0, which means yeah, which means this will be 0. So dy dg is equal to 0 in the Keynesian liquidity trap. L prime is infinite. So dy dg is equal to the maximum, which is equal to এটা কেটে গেল. So this is 0. It is equal to 1 by S prime. So this is the simple Keynesian multiplier. Okay, drdg you can find out. Okay. আচ্ছা তাহলে so this is L prime. So dy dg is L prime. sorry, I made a mistake. And what is dy dt? It is 1 minus s prime. Okay. So it depends upon, see, this minus you can ignore because what you're going to do is reduce taxes. So basically, it depends upon the value of s prime. So ds dy. So if ds dy is high, as it increases and approaches 0, this multiplier is going to go down, right? See, this part is easy. You don't have to do anything. But the numerator, in the numerator, you have s prime. So if your s prime is going to go up, the value of the multiplier is going to come down. So it depends on what you're, but you can only capture the demand side effect from here. You cannot really capture the supply side effect. That cannot be captured in the ISLM model. Okay, so if you, so this will give you only a partial picture of a partial indicator of how to choose or when to choose between the fiscal policy and the uh, government spending and tax. The ISLM model focuses on the demand side. So this is one limitation of the Keynesian model. You're not really looking into the supply side effect. That is the, you can say that is the, will come in the classical model. So anyway, I'll just check whether I can locate any more material on this. And of course, we can also think of combining the two policies so that rate of interest doesn't increase or increase. So if we can suppose, let's say if we go back to this slide. So suppose we increase G slightly, rate of interest will rise, then we increase money supply. So this will reduce rate of interest to the previous level. So we can think of combinations. Let's see. So this is the IS curve. And now we can think of so you can see, sorry, we have to go for this. The rate of interest has gone up. And now let us see. that we have something like this. So we can see that income has gone up, but there is no change in the rate of interest. Okay, so we can, through a combination, we can control the effect on R. Y will go up even more if you use a combination, but at the same time, the money market change can be neutralized. Okay, so a combo policy will neutralize the effect on money market, income will be stimulated without changing R dramatically or even changing R, as in this case. Okay, so just this is okay. So I think we have finished off with the ISLM curve. Uh, I'll just go through and see whether there's any other point to cover. Of course, we can also introduce uh, open up the economy and bring in foreign trade. But I mean, this dimension becomes very difficult to cover. I mean, your multiplier is going to change, but so far as the four quadrant diagram is there, only the conditions will change over here. I mean, this will become S plus T plus the balance of trade. So, I mean, the curve will rotate, but there will be no qualitative change in the model so far as the diagram is concerned. What will happen is uh, the multiplier will change slightly, but it's not, at this point, it's not very important. And of course, we can also think of, we have an additional policy instrument, X goes up. So we can have a G over here and sorry, we just as we have a G over here, we also have an X over here. So this will be I plus G plus X. And as if you have an export promotion policy, the X line, the vertical line, which is the vertical line, which is like this, that will shift. So exports will shift, this will go up, but it will be just like as an increase in G. So I'm not going to go into this part. I'm not going to bring in foreign trade. In fact, GC will cover this later on. Uh, she deals with the foreign, she's the foreign expert. So from next day onwards, uh, I'm going to start with, if I have anything in ISLM, I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to switch over to integral calculus. Okay.
So all these are from Branson.
See the four quadrant you can see from Branson, but otherwise I've uh, at least the first part I've tried to follow from uh, Freud. Do you need this? You can work it out yourself. I'll remove this. So if you read Branson, I mean, do you require any help in the four quadrant diagram? It's fairly mechanical. But don't read too many books. That's my advice.